There's the famous hadith, again this is one of the most authentic, and this is a hadith that tells us that the Prophet was sitting with his companions in Medina, and he told them that a man of the garden is about to walk into the mosque. And then this man came in. He was of the Ansar, and his name was Sufyan, but to this day we don't know who he really was. There were 4 Sufyans among the Ansar, and we don't know which one he was. And he was poor, he was unknown, he was insignificant, and he walked in the mosque. He had just made wudu, and we are told his beard was dripping with water, and he was shaking his beard. He had his sandals in his hand, and he said, "Assalamu alaikum," to everyone, and he came in and prayed. Well, the Sahaba witnessed that, and among them was a young boy who would be one of the most brilliant transmitters of hadith, and that is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. May Allah be pleased with them. So Abdullah, he's just a little boy, but he saw that. And then the next day the same thing happened. And the third day the next thing happened. The Prophet said, a man of the garden is about to come through the door. And again it was Sufyan, the Ansari. So Abdullah ibn Amr, he says, I'm going to get to the root of this. So he followed Sufyan home, who was a poor man. And he said, my father and I had a fight, and I can't sleep at his house for 3 days, 3 nights. Would you let me sleep in your house? And so Sufyan says, of course, come in. So from the hadith we see that he probably had just a 1-room house. That was typical. And he had his bed. And so Abdullah is watching him all night. He must be praying all night, but he didn't get up to pray. He goes to Isha, he comes home, he eats whatever he has, and he gives Abdullah, and then he goes to bed. And he must be fasting every day, but he didn't fast a single day. And he said, I watched him all night. He said, the only thing I could notice is that whenever he would turn in his sleep, he would say, Allah, Allah, Allah. And he said, I began to despise his worship. Because Abdullah ibn Amr, he expected to see this man, doing all kinds of miraculous things all day and all night. But he kept his company, and he's just an ordinary man. He prays the 5 prayers in the mosque. He does what Muslims are supposed to do, but there's nothing special about him at all. So after 3 days, Abdullah ibn Amr, he says to Sufyan, he says, there was no problem between me and my father, but the Prophet ﷺ said this about you. And so I wanted to see what is so remarkable about you, but really, what I saw is not so remarkable. And Sufyan said, but that's all there is. That's all there is. Again, he's a sincere man, and he's of course delighted that the Prophet ﷺ has given him these incredible good tidings. And so you can imagine, he's thinking, but what would it be? He says, wait a minute, because Abdullah is now turning to go away. He said, wait a minute, there is something. He said, I never go to sleep at night, but that I have gotten out of my heart any enmity, any duplicity, any ghish for another person, and any hasad. So he said, this I do, that before I go to bed, I make sure that in my heart there is no duplicity towards anyone. There is no envy of anyone. And then the young boy, Abdullah, he said, that's it. That's it. And he said, that's what's difficult to do. So these were people of the heart. And this man who has been promised the garden, his secret is a secret that no one can see but God. And God's messenger is given that secret. But that's what makes all the difference. And there's so many stories like this, and the Sahaba knew that very well.